The Panzerkampfwagen IV, commonly known as the Panzer IV, is a German medium tank developed in the late 1930s and used extensively during the Second World War. Its ordnance inventory designation was Sd.Kfz 161. The Panzer IV was the most numerous German tank of the Second World War. 85-53 Panzer IVs of all versions were built during World War II, only exceeded by assault gun Sd.Kfz. Its chassis was also used as the base for many other fighting vehicles, including assault gun Sd.Kfz, self-propelled anti-tank gun Jagdpanzer IV, self-propelled anti-aircraft gun Wirbelwind, and self-propelled gun Brummbär. The Panzer IV was the brainchild of the German general and innovative armored warfare theorist Heinz Guderian. In concept, it was intended to be a support tank for use against enemy anti-tank guns and fortifications. The Panzer IV saw service in all combat theaters involving Germany and was the only German tank to remain in continuous production throughout the war. It was originally designed for infantry support, while the similar Panzer III was to fight armored fighting vehicles. However, as the Germans faced the formidable T-34, the Panzer IV had more development potential, with a larger turret ring to mount more powerful guns, so it swapped roles with the Panzer III, whose production wound down in 1943. The Panzer IV received various upgrades and design modifications, intended to counter new threats, extending its service life. Generally, these involved increasing the armor protection or upgrading the weapons. The first mass-produced version of the Panzer IV was the Ausf.A in 1936. As main armament, the vehicle mounted the short-barreled, howitzer-like tank gun 7.5 cm Kw-37L24, which was a low-velocity weapon mainly designed to fire high-explosive shells. Against armored targets, firing the Panzergranate, armor-piercing shell, at 430 meters per second, the Kw-Kfz could penetrate 43 mm, inclined at 30 degrees, at ranges of up to 700 meters. A 792 mm MG-34 machine gun was mounted coaxially with the main weapon in the turret, while a second machine gun of the same type was mounted in the front plate of the hull. The Ausf.A was protected by 14.5 mm of steel armor on the front plate of the chassis, and 20 mm on the turret. This was only capable of stopping artillery fragments, small arms fire, and light anti-tank projectiles. The Panzer IV B, C and D variants introduced some improvements by replacement of the original engine with the more powerful, the new transmission, adding a new command cupola, increasing the armor protection, changed the turret's gun mantlet and some other minor changes. Following the victorious campaign in Poland, the German army requested even more Panzer IV vehicles. This would lead to the Panzer IV Ausf, which was, in essence, just a slightly improved D version. This had 30 mm of armor on the bow plate, while a 30 mm appliqué steel plate was added to the glacis as an interim measure. A new driver's visor, adopted from the Stug-3, was installed on the hull front plate. The commander's cupola was redesigned and was better protected. It had 5 vision slits, each of which was protected by 2, upper and lower, sliding armored covers. An additional visual change was the addition of a fume ventilator. Removing one and redesigning the second signal port's protective cap shape. From March 1941 onward, all Ausf vehicles would be equipped with the storage bin placed on the turret's rear. Older model Panzer IV tanks were retrofitted with these features when returned to the manufacturer for servicing. During a production run that lasted from October 1940 to April 1941, some 200 vehicles were built. The Panzer IV Ausf had, like its predecessors, a crew of 5. The hull contained the engine bay to the rear, with the driver and radio operator, who doubled as the hull machine gunner, seated at the front left and front right, respectively. In the turret, the tank commander sat beneath his roof hatch, while the gunner was situated to the left of the gun breech and the loader to the right. The Panzer IV Aufs performed the same firing support role as the previous version. Its short-barrel gun, despite primarily not being designed for it, still had enough firepower to pose a danger to most lightly armored tanks during the first half of World War II. The Panzer IV Aufs would see action in the Balkans, Africa and more notably in the Soviet Union. By the time of the German invasion of the Soviet Union, the number of Panzer IV was increased to 517, or 531 depending on the source, with each panzer division receiving on average 30 vehicles. The Panzer IV could destroy lightly armored T-26 and BT series tanks. Against the T-34 and the KV series, on the other hand, they could do little. Despite the German attempts to increase the armor protection of the Panzer IV, they were still susceptible to most anti-tank guns. The Panzer IV Aufs would remain in use up to early 1944, by which time only a few had survived. The Panzer IV was the most widely exported tank in German service, with around 300 sold to Finland, Romania, Spain and Bulgaria. After the war, Syria procured Panzer IV from France and Czechoslovakia, which saw combat in the 1967 Six-Day War. The Panzer IV Aufs chassis would be used for a limited number of non-combat modifications. An unknown number of different Panzer IV chassis were modified to be used as ammunition supply vehicles for the huge self-propelled siege mortar codenamed Karlsruhe. The modification included removing the turret and installing a large crane in its place. Additionally, an ammunition compartment for 4 huge 2-ton shells was also added. Prior to the war, the German army was interested in the idea of a bridge-carrying panzer. During 1941, at least 4 Panzer IV Aufs chassis were modified for this role. An unknown number of Panzer IV Aufs would be modified to be used as submersible tanks for Operation Ceylon. These vehicles are easily identified by the added frame holder for the waterproof fabric on the front part of the turret and the hull-positioned machine gun ball mount. These vehicles were used mostly in Russia during 1941. In early 1941, around 10 Panzer IV Aufs were modified to be used on the North African campaign. They were modified by improving the ventilation system to cope with the high temperatures. In addition, sand filters were also added to prevent sand from getting into the engine. These vehicles were also painted with a sand color to help with camouflage. These vehicles were given a special designation TR, which stands for tropic. 2 Panzer IV Aufs would be used to test a new type of interleaved suspension. While this suspension was tested, it was not adopted. Today, only 1 Panzer IV Aufs survives. This particular vehicle can be seen at the Australian Armour and Artillery Museum in Smithfield, Queensland.